Hi again. Our next company is Nanexa, a Swedish biotech company focused on development of novel delivery systems for drugs. And with us, we have here David Vesveri, the CEO. David, I'll give you the word now.
Okay, thank you so much. And it's a pleasure being here this morning, already well in the December month. So I'm going to speak to you about Nanexa and where we are today, and a little bit about our projects and so on, and the progress in the company. So what is Nanexa then? We are a company that is focusing on a drug delivery technology that we have developed ourselves. We call it PharmaShell, and it's a technology for long-acting injectables. You can compare it a little bit with a company like Camurus, even though they are a few years ahead of us. But we're in the same type of market, same type of potential, I'd say, that they have. And we're developing this now with both own projects. I'll come to those a little bit later in the presentation, but also partner projects. Partner projects where we will out-license the technology to the pharma companies of the world. And I can mention that already now in the presentation that we have gained quite a lot of interest from the pharma companies now with data that we have generated the last couple of years, I'd say. So the interest from now, I would say the really big companies have grown, and the feasibility study agreements that we have signed and will sign have now grown to a position where we actually get quite a good revenue from those agreements as well. But we are of course looking for the final license agreement to get real money, so to say. But it's good that we have actually increased the value also in the feasibility studies. It shows that the interest is even higher, I'd say, in the pharma companies. Going then to our project portfolio, and as you know, we now have 3 projects, 2 of them actually in the clinical phase. Next 20, we actually started our first clinical PK study, a phase 1 study, yesterday. So the first dose was given yesterday. We're very happy about that, and that's a clinical study that will give us very valuable data points quite soon, actually, in the first quarter next year, and also second quarter. It's a dose escalation study that will follow from dose to dose, and hopefully be able to give you some input or output from that study through the development of it or execution of it. Apart from that, we have the newly launched project Next22, which is a product for diabetes. Liraglutide, a peptide that is now used for the type 2 diabetes treatment. But that specific molecule is used for daily injection. Now, there are products in the market for weekly injections, but there's really a drive to get fewer injections for the type 2 diabetes. And I'll come to that a little bit later. So what we're aiming for here is a 1-month depot, actually, of liraglutide. And we also have the Next18 project that we started a clinical study already 2021. We got slight problems with tissue irritation there that we have now solved, and going back to that again later in the presentation. But what is important here is that we have 3 projects, and together it will definitely have a peak sales of well over $1 billion. Specifically looking at the Next22 project, we have very big hopes for that project, and we have taken a valuation from an external partner, Explico, which is a Danish company working with project evaluations and company evaluations in this field. And based on the market segment and market development, and also the clinical need and so on and so forth, they can see that we have well over $1 billion in sales for these 3 projects in total. So that's very exciting, I'd say, and promising for us going forward. It points at the position where we actually can get very good license agreements on these projects. Now, this is an extremely crowded picture, and I will not go through all the lines here. But to the left, you'll see a little bit our technology. We actually coat API particles with an extremely thin inorganic coating that dissolves very slowly, and that dissolution of the shell is actually what controls the release of the API, giving a slow release and even and very nice plasma concentration of the drug. Some of the features, unique features of PharmaShell is shown on the right side. What I can mention as being one of the sort of the top ones are the really high drug load, 80–90%, which is, I'd say, unheard of in comparing to other drug delivery systems. We also have, what is really important is to have the control of the initial release. What is first released, maybe the first day or so after an injection, and we have a possibility to now control that, and that is also something that a lot of other drug delivery platforms have a problem with, specifically for products or substances that are easy soluble. There are several other unique features, but I will not tire you with all those. This is also a crowded picture. What has happened? Have we gained any? Have we progressed, or are we standing still? We have progressed quite well, I'd say. Looking at the Next 18 project, for instance, we started off in the end of 2021 with these slight tissue irritation problems in the first clinical study. But what we did then, very swiftly right after, is to evaluate what was really causing that problem. And it turned out, which was very likely for us, that it was the API as such, that was the sort of the problem to giving this irritation. But what was good is that we actually found a way to go around that. We found a way to reformulate the Next 18 project, or Next 18 product, I should say. And not only did that give a possibility for us going forward a project, which is very important for us, but it also gave some very good insight into how to build our IP portfolio. So that will give even more opportunities going forward. What else? Well, we have strengthened our IP portfolio quite well. Not only that we have more patents granted, but as you know, we also had a litigation process with Vitrivax, where we actually secured that they will not use our process going forward in their development of vaccines, which is their focus area. So we also reached a settlement agreement with them that we feel is very good for us. We have a possibility and a mechanism for licensing going forward if they would need our process, which we believe they will. And we also have a possibility to actually police that in a controlled manner. So that is very good for us. And that was actually the aim of this whole process. What we also did during the year is that we actually finalized and moved into a new facility in Uppsala that we also got GMP approval for. So that is I'd say that's a facility where we actually have a pilot plant that we're able to manufacture clinical trial material for all phases, from phase 1 up to phase 3. And that is something, to have that in-house is a very good strength for a company like ours. We did launch the Next 22 project. We did sign, I think, 3 evaluation agreements with big pharma companies, which is very good. And like I mentioned earlier, we get better paid for these than pre-COVID, so to say. And like I mentioned also yesterday, we started actually our first clinical study in the Next 20 project, which is very important for us. So yes, we have moved forward quite well, I'd say. This is a sort of a vision. How will we look like in 2026 or so? Well, we believe that we have out-licensed the 3 projects that we now have started. They are in different stages of development. One can potentially look at Next 22 as also being in the NDA phase. The clinical studies needed for that to get approval is quite limited compared to oncology field, for instance. But we believe that all those 3 projects are in either clinical phase 3 or in NDA phase. So that's really good. We'll get a lot of revenues from those at signing, at milestones, maybe not royalties yet because they're not launched, but We'll get a lot of milestones, and we get payment for the work that we perform in these projects. Apart from that, we also have a number of, you shouldn't say just 3, or it could be 4, it could be 2, I can't say, but we have a number of partner projects that we also get a good revenue stream from. And those are maybe some of the projects that we now do feasibility studies on. They could be projects that we start a feasibility on maybe next year or so. But we'll move those into either phase 1, 2, 3, and during 26. And also for those projects, we'll of course get a good revenue stream. So at that time, and going forward to 26, it will gradually be a process where we actually start gaining a lot of revenue. And I think that is important for us, of course. Then going into more detail of the projects, next 22 then, which is type 2 diabetes, an enormous market really. And what we're aiming for here is to, like I mentioned, to make a 1-month depot out of liraglutide, which is a GLP-1 substance that is off patent now, so we can work with it as our own project. And what is the problem then with the current treatment? Well, a lot of type 2 diabetes patients don't take their medication as they should. So the adherence to treatment is really, really poor in this area. So what we want to do is to really see to that these people get the medication throughout the month that they so they get a continuous treatment, I should say. And that will, of course, actually increase the efficacy of the treatment. That's just, it goes by nature, that is. And what I can say, the last bullet, there's strong interest in developing long-acting GLP-1 products from the major pharmaceutical companies. I can mention that 2 or 3 or 4 times, it is a strong interest from the big pharma companies on looking at the GLP-1s. And it is, like I can look here at the market, it grows by about 10% each year. It's already now a $50 billion market for the GLP, or for the type 2 diabetes products, about $15 billion for the 7 major markets for the GLP-1s. And even though we work with one that is off patent now, one can think of, well, you will take just a few percentage of the liraglutide market. But no, we do think, and also the Explico thinks, that we'll take not only from the liraglutide, but we'll take from all of the GLP-1s markets. And that is due to the benefit of just having a treatment each month. One can extend that also, thinking that we can do first a 1 month, we can extend that with our technology probably to once every 3rd month, so a quarterly treatment. But we're aiming for a first 1 month to start with. So it's an enormous market potential here. And thinking about this is not including China. It does not include India, for instance, and the Asian markets. So, well, Japan is included, of course. But looking then at next 20, the project where we just started our clinical development. This is also a huge market. Revlimid, which is the original product here for lenalidomide, I think have sales of $11 billion today. So it's a huge market. Even though when the patent will drop, the price will drop, but still the market will be there for products like this, and we will be able, hopefully we have good signs of that we will be able to get a premium price on this product. Given that, and that lenalidomide will be a base treatment for multiple myeloma, even though there are new drugs coming into the market, this gives us a very good and strong and good feeling in the stomach about this project. We will really have a possibility to out-license this project as a project with a good revenue stream. I should also mention here, actually, on all projects, maybe the names on the advisory board doesn't mean that much to you guys, just looking at the names. But if you Google the names, I can tell you that the advisory boards that we have on our projects would very much match an advisory board that Pfizer or any other big company have. we have a very good network when it comes to specifically the hematological oncology field, but also in the diabetes field, of course. So that goes also for the next project, the Next 18. And what's interesting, what's really, really interesting in the Next 18 project is that we see a possibility actually to move this project from what's called an non-inferior strategy, where we just document the product as being a much, much more convenient product, exchanging seven injections just to one. And that itself, when we talk to insurance companies in the US, that itself would allow a premium price. But what we're now looking at, after having long discussions with the advisory board, they strongly think that we should go for a superior claim. And why can we say that? It's the same molecule as the Vidasa product that's out on the market. Well, it is because this API, azacitidine, that's called, has an epigenetic mechanism. So it actually goes in and into the DNA and do what's called a demethylation of the DNA. And one of the reasons for the MDS indication is that the DNA has been metallized. It has been there's a lot of metal groups bound to the DNA, and then when splitting the cells or dividing the cells, they cannot read the DNA as they should. What azacitidine does is that they take away those metal groups, which is a chemical group, so to say, so that the DNA works as it should. And having that mechanism, it is so much better to get a constant plasma concentration, so that you get a sort of a pressure on the cells and demetallize the DNA throughout the time, instead of these very, very fast peaks that is with a Vidasa formulation. So we're taking this project now back to the preclinical to study this mechanism in a mouse model by next year. And we have a good collaboration with Riks Hospital in Copenhagen for that. And so we're aiming at that, and also aiming at really showing evidence that the new formulation works as it should. This is a picture that has gained a lot of interest from the big pharma, that we can actually work with monoclonal antibodies. I see the time is running out, so I will not speak too much about this. But this, I wouldn't be surprised if we start feasibility studies with the big pharma around the monoclonal antibodies very soon, I'd say. This is more about our pilot plant, and I think I've mentioned the most important things here. This is, of course, the most important picture of all. The management team, extremely good management team with long experience from the pharma industry, which is extremely important. We have done product development, all of us, before. Not all of us, but the majority of us before. So we know how to do it, and we're pretty sure that we can do it also with these projects. And we also have, of course, a very experienced board of directors headed by Göran Ando. And so investment highlights, why invest in Nanexa? Well, there's a lot of things that I've already mentioned, but it's sort of a summary picture of that. And it is, I would point at this very strongly, that we do have a unique technology. And I think the drug delivery market for long-acting injectables are really growing. So we have a huge potential upside here. And this is where we're located, in the former Pharmacia site in Uppsala. So we have about 900 square meters there, with about 300 square meters of pilot plant, 300 of lab, and we also have some offices there where we can sit and do other things than the laboratory work. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, David, for such a nice presentation. And now we have time for a few questions. And I will start with one on the news from yesterday on your Next 20 project.
Yeah.
And I will structure this question in two parts. The first part, I don't know how much you can say, but could you give us a little bit of color on the trial design? I mean, how many patients are you planning to include in this trial, and what would be the dose escalation structure? Okay. And the second part of the question, and it's something that we have heard from investors before, is in this Next 20 project, and how much. How big or small is the risk that we see the same that we saw in the Next 18? I mean, how much transferable issues are there?
I think those are two excellent questions, actually. Well, it will be a dose escalation study, starting with a very low dose. The number of patients is a handful of patients, or not patients. We actually do this in healthy volunteers, which actually will speed up the process of executing the trial. It is done in Uppsala, so we have close by, and we have. So it's a handful of healthy volunteers, and we're looking at 3 different levels of dose, and going from the first, and then get a readout from that to the next, and to the third one. When it comes to the risk of getting the same result as with Next 18. What we have done here is a much more thorough investigation of this formulation, since the lenalidomide API has not been given subcutaneously before. We were sort of forced, one can say, by the medical agency to do a preclinical GLP tox just to look at the skin reaction in the subcutaneous tissue when administering this. So we did quite a big study of that in mini pigs, very much like we did with evaluation of the Next 18 product. And we did see very little reactions in the mini pigs. And that has also, of course, been part of our clinical trial application. So also the medical agency have looked at that data and concluded, both our toxicologist and the medical agency have concluded that this is a very, very limited risk.
That's very good to hear. And a second question, in the Next 22 product, you are going for liraglutide for diabetes, and in diabetes, I mean, the diabetes space, it's growing quite fast lately. I mean, there is several companies playing and bringing new products to the market, and one of the things that the space is seeing is the appearance of more oral treatments for diabetes. I would like to hear your view on how the space is developing and how much competitive situation is there with the oral ones and the injectable ones, and where is the Next 22 there?
Yes, it is a growing field, and there will be more competitors getting out there. But the oral ones will have one part of it, and the driving force for the Next 22 project is the poor adherence. The poor adherence will stay with oral. It's not just that the poor adherence will just be eliminated just because you go from an injection once daily than taking a pill once daily. So that is clearly seen in many studies, not just for diabetes, but also for a lot of prescription medicines in the US. So I'm not that worried about the oral ones. We have, of course, the Lilly product, the once weekly, which we see now take a big, it gains a lot of market share, actually. But once weekly is just once weekly. I think that is just to show the trend, and it proves the thinking about the Next 22 project and why we actually already have seen quite a big interest from the big pharmas.
It's very interesting. And one last question, and it's on your Next 18 project. You mentioned in your last quarterly report that you are evaluating now if Next 18 has a superior efficacy compared to Vidaza. Could you give us some color on that, and what would be the consequence, let's say, if you can prove that it has superior efficacy?
So what we're doing, we're planning those studies. It is, fine. Actually, we have found a mouse model that is validated sort of for this for looking at the demethylation. That is quite tricky actually to look at demethylation, but there are methods out there that have been used in several clinical studies, and we now have that planned for next year. And so when we will get those data, if that really shows and proves our hypothesis that this really have a superior effect, that will be part of our sales package sort of, and to partner. And in this specific project, I think having data, preclinical data that shows that there's no tissue irritation, those two together with an FDA meeting and having an FDA sort of approval of a clinical program for superiority, it will give a very good ground for out-licensing this quite early, actually. Because we already now we have some interest from companies. They really see that this is an interesting market, and the concept that we have is really something that attracts a lot of companies.
That's very good to hear. And David, I think we have to close it now.
Okay.
It's a good time, but thank you very much for being here today and for your nice presentation.
Thank you so much.